everything means that people aren't in their lanes as much, and that you go, well, this guy is dangerous because he's not just making a joke, he's doing something else, and he's using humor. And I'm like, I'm really not. I'm really just trying to make a joke. That's all. That's really what I'm trying to do. But I do think that because of the flattening, there's a lot of people out there that go, they take aim at humor because they go, humor is where bad ideas can kind of, start and flourish.
But don't you put some responsibility on you?
Yeah.
Don't you think humor is a way to that you are the modern, like Jordan Peterson style intellectual? That humor is actually a tool of changing the zeitgeist, changing the
absolutely can be, but it also cannot be. I don't think it's any one thing, and I think there's a lot of pressure for a comedian. You can be funny and right, you can be funny and wrong. If the goal is to be right, you might end up being right and not funny. So the reality is funny has to come first. There are brilliant people that have been funny and correct according to people, right? But at the end of the day, people have put way too much faith in what comedy is. Most of what comedy is people showing up to strip malls and telling jokes for an hour while people eat chicken fingers, and they all get drunk and they laugh and they feel a little bit better about their lives. That's really the majority of comedy. Then there's like 10 famous people that are really famous that do a version of that in an arena. But the amount of cultural power they have has always been greatly exaggerated. My uncles loved George Carlin, who was anti-military industrial complex, anti-this, anti-that. And then they would go vote for Ronald Reagan. They didn't care. It's not as powerful as you think. I wish it was. It feels good. It feels good for me to say, I am the new thing. It really isn't. It truly isn't. Comedians are the people that get on stage and say, we're fucked up, we're drug addicts, we're sex addicts, we're fat, we're gross, we can't manage our money, we can't stop eating, we can't stop fucking doing horrible things, we're liars, we're narcissists, we're scumbags. We're the people who can say that. Only a psychopath will look at us and go, show me the way. Like, it's not.
I disagree with you.
Well,
then I'm a psychopath.
Well, and that's another issue. No pushback.
That's another issue.
But you know what I'm saying.
One, I don't, because I understand you using this as a psychological tool for yourself to give yourself freedom.
Yeah.
But the reality is, you are one of the rare comedians, like a George Carlin, who is, besides being funny.
Yeah. When I hear things like that, I'm like, okay, you're being very sweet, but like, I agree. I understand what you're saying. I do stop and hopefully make you think. Yeah. I hope that's what good comedy is. But I think I try to do that. But I also would hate to feel shackled to the idea of that I had to make a point, and that point had to be correct. I think the best comedy makes fun of everything, makes fun of both sides, and then there's a deeper truth about humanity revealed. But then what happens is people take that deeper truth and go, let's politicize it. Right. Well, what does he mean? Is it the right or the left? I'm like, I'm doing something that I think speaks to, hopefully, people on both sides, everybody, because I'm making fun of people on the left, the right, and the center, and people who don't care, and people who do care, and I'm trying to figure out a way to do it. But then immediately, anything of value in the culture right now is like, how do we politicize it? How do we put it in the box? And yes, I think comedy can produce a lot of inherently valuable things, reflective, thoughtful things, but then immediately, can it be put in this box where all of those things can be used politically? No. And like when they say, like, comedy is a great way to speak truth to power. It is, but I don't know how much it changes. I don't know how much a joke can dethrone a king. I know the idea is nice, but let's look at the practical application. I mean, we had brilliant comics. Bill Hare, George Carlin, Richard Pryor. We had people talk about so many problems in society, illustrate them, put a spotlight on them, and we still have them. They're worse now than they've ever been.
That's not true. I think the society's better, and so the pushback, from my perspective, it's very possible that those voices were the exact reason we have the world today, which I do believe is actually. I'm on the boring old measures of what makes a good world, which is the amount of violence in the world, the amount of opportunity, all those kinds of measures. even happiness, all of those things measured, things have been improving. Steven Pinker gets a lot of shit for this, but he's really good at articulating how the data says pretty clearly that the world is getting better. And it's arguable that the freedoms we do enjoy currently are thanks to the communist voices or the people who mock. So to me, it's possible that humor is the very thing that saves the world. Humor is the very thing that is the balance power.
It might, but I think a lot of the things that those guys criticize, whether it was militarism or the elites, the lying, the corruption, the bribery, that's still going on. And it's always going to go on, right? Because that's the nature of the thing. We call it out, we point it out, but we don't have a plan to change. It's not really our job.
Right.
And I think that too much now is like, well, comedians should have a... Like, I don't tell people who to vote for. Like, the idea that comedians went tell people who to vote for is like, to me, is crazy. I understand, like, people have strong opinions, but, like, I believe I have a job. And my job is to make you laugh or whatever, maybe make you think, but, like, my job is not to tell you who to vote for. I mean, it's absurd.
But see, the thing you do by the comedy, like, on your Twitter, that people should definitely follow.
I believe it's that Tim J. Dillon. I agree with you.
Oh, on this point of...
I agree with you.
I heard that people should follow you. Yeah, you give me freedom to think on my own. Meaning, like, you're shaking things up to where I don't feel constrained about what I can think about. And
that's
what
awesome.
I thank you. So you're not telling me what to think. You're giving me the freedom to think. And that's what great comedy does. Is, you know, I don't often agree with George Carlin. He can get pretty political sometimes.
Right.
But, you know, just the ability to do that is so rare. Podcasts do that too now. Like, there's certain people that can really just challenge you to, even when you disagree with them, to sort of be like, oh, it's okay to think about this kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I appreciate that because that's awesome. I mean, that's a guy that gives a brilliant guy. That's great. If I'm giving you the license to think, then man, the world is completely fucked. But I'm happy about it.
Yeah. No, speaking about the world being completely fucked, Alex Jones turned on QAnon. I know almost nothing.
It's a very tough match. They had a rough marriage. They fought it. And they fought it out for years. And eventually, we just knew someone was going to leave someone. You tried to leave him a few months ago.
Also, wait,
he was staying at someone else's house. The car wasn't in the driveway. Well, the thing about QAnon that makes it a lot of fun is that it's kind of a make it up as you go along. I'm a drug addict, right? So often my lives aren't planned. They're in the moment. A lot of what I do on the podcast, it's all in the moment. I'll have an idea what I want to talk about and I rant, And I've been like stoned and I show up at home. My parents are like, what's going on? There was $50 on the mantle, now it's not there. And I'm like, well, and I gotta make something up on the spot, right? Are you drinking again? No, I'm not. And then you gotta have well, you were gone for 2 days, no one knows where you were, and somebody said you left your car. Well, I was at a sales conference, and I left my car, I flew to Phoenix. I understand what that is. QAnon is an ever-evolving conspiracy theory where the events are happening in the past, in the present, and in the future. It's kind of hilarious. Every conspiracy theory is like Kennedy, something like that. There's a lot of truth in that, or all truth. But at the end of the day, it's like you're looking back from 30,000 feet, analyzing little things that are happening. QAnon's like, so I think Alex is kind of like, I'm a little tired of the constant evolving nature of that conspiracy theory.
So he's not a fan of like the jazz. QAnon. So they're not, because they're improvising constantly.
They're improvising. Alex is like, hey man, I was on board a little bit, but at the end of the day, it's getting a little annoying because it can turn on you. Eventually, you become part of the conspiracy.
Right.
Alex is controlled opposition. That's what they'll say. Eventually, because QAnon just eats things. So it's a conspiracy that just eats things. The minute you start to say, hey man, maybe that's not, it just eats you and go, you're in on it. Everyone's in on it. Everyone's a satanic pedophile. Everybody. Everyone that questions it is eating children. And you go, wait a minute, that seems illogical. But now
there's not enough children.
Now there's not enough. And I think QAnon's over now, unfortunately, because for these people. But I think, fortunately for them, they're going to have to find a new hobby. But I think it's over now because even the best QAnon people now are starting to go, hey man, this might not be going down the way we thought. But they've literally gone as far as to say that like Biden and Trump switch faces. Trump's actually still the president, except Biden. You have to be a real moron now You gotta be real stupid now. It's at the end, like when it was cool, like when the Epstein stuff happened, QAnon was like, it was party at Q.
Yeah.
And then when the Hunter Biden laptop stuff started to happen, they were like dancing, like it's time. And then Biden wins, and they're like, wait, whoa. And it's just like, it's the day after the party. QAnon, if you ever went to a party in high school or college, QAnon right now is the day after the party. You wake up, it's 12 noon, the sun is hitting you in the face, you're hungover, there's this stench of disgusting beer and cigarettes all over the house. You're like, what the fuck happened here? I gotta get out of here and get a bacon, egg, and cheese. That's what QAnon is. They gotta sober up, get out of that house, get a bacon, egg, and cheese, and go, man, we were fucking whack. We were high. I thought Nancy Pelosi was eating children for 4 years, and that Donald Trump was gonna put her in Guantanamo Bay. Wow. That was, because I mean, it's interesting, because people had to do that after the 60s. They're like, yeah, I just did a bunch of acid and I lived in a ranch in Malibu and fucked everyone I ever saw. And they're like, I thought that was the way the world was going to go, and I followed some shaman guy, some guru who just wanted to fuck me and 10 other people that were living there. And we did that for 3 years. Apparently we never created the utopia we thought we were going to have. And now I'm back working here, you know, at Allstate Insurance. And we have great policies. And we'd love you to come in the office and we can break them down for you. It all ends, folks. All the love, all the bullshit ends. But it's fun. They had so much fun. QAnon was hard to get mad at because this was all they had.
Yeah. They were fun. They were quite good at it.
And they were good at it. And there was a lot of desperate people, but there were also rich idiots. There's also like dumb rich people, and those are like the saddest people in Q, because it's like they have the resources to do other things, but they just love Q. They're like, I'm just into this, and I'm like, you're rich. Go do something. How incurious are you? Go to the Amazon. Go birdwatch. I don't know, but they're, you know, so
play golf.
It's sad, but they're like done now. I mean, it's over.
Oh, so you think this is the?
I think everything's ending. My whole thing is that Trump's out, QAnon's over, quarantine's going to end, everything's going to go back to something that's more recognizable. I think that...
Are you optimistic about the 2021 and what the world is like?
In certain aspects, I have optimism, and then I have short-term optimism and long-term pessimism. Okay. Meaning that I think in the short term things can get better. I think long term, because there's so many forces that are out of our control, that are evolving in ways I barely understand, that are carving up society, it's going to be very tough long term to be completely optimistic, like, hey, it's going to be great, it's going to be good forever. But short term, I think, yeah, this quarantine will end, things will get better, the economy will get a little better, the constant Trump craziness will die down a little bit. That's my hope, that people can go back to focusing on things that matter, which is, you know, the things that are near you, close to you.
Yeah, the humans around you.
Humans around you, not Nancy Pelosi. I have uncles who think that Nancy Pelosi, you never met her. You'll never meet her. Shut up.
Yeah. And I have a belief that this kind of local love and kindness you naturally can have for human beings that you actually know can be expanded at scale through the social networks that we use and we build. Twitter is currently failing at that miserably.
That would be great.
But that's...
If we were able to increase the love through the social networks, that would be great. It feels very hard.
It was a challenge. You tweeted, one of the underreported reasons conspiracy theories take hold is because some of them are true. What conspiracy theories do you believe that are sort of important for people to think about?
Kennedy was not killed by a lone gunman with no connections to any other situation, government, you know. I believe that JFK was removed from office by a group of people that had very different interests. But
this is a question of like deep state, so these are the powerful people that are able now to dictate through basically the threat of violence what the presidents, the surface powerful people in our society.
Yeah, I mean, I want another investigation into 9/11, not because I think George Bush pressed the button and made 9/11 happen, but because we invaded the country of Iraq, and then we, 15 out of 19 hijacked our Saudi Arabia. There was tons of stuff in the 9/11 report that didn't make sense to anybody. There's tons of stuff about that day, and then I feel like you just don't know.
Yeah, that's, sorry to interrupt. That's when I, in my little ant life, touched upon conspiracy theory world. I first learned about Alex Jones.
Right.
Because when 9/11 happened, it was very frustrating to me how poorly the reporting and transparency around what exactly happened, who knew what, all that kind of basic information you would hope the government would release, reveal, and use as like a lesson for how we prevent this. Instead, it felt like a lot of stuff was being hidden in order to manipulate some kind of machine that leads us to war.
Yeah, that's very scary. Yeah, I mean, I just don't feel like we've got the full story. I don't know what the full story is. I can't. I don't know what it is, but I don't feel like we've got the full story. Yeah, there are groups of powerful pedophiles, right? Whether they're in the Catholic Church or they're in the government or wherever they are able to cover things up that they do. They're able to silence people to try to out them in terms of like, disrupt their operations. That's true. QAnon has nuggets of truth. It just went crazy. Any conspiracy theory that involves the Knights Templar and also Chrissy Teigen is probably wrong.
What's the Knights Templar?
Well, it's just this group of knights back in the day. It's that supposedly secret meetings, and like in every conspiracy, they talk about like, if you go deep enough, it's like the Knights Templar, the Rosicrucians, all of these secret groups throughout history, the Illuminati.
There's a thread that connects all of them.
Oh yeah, it connects it all to David Spade. I mean, it's a little much.
Well, how do you, if you're David Spade, defend yourself?
You ignore it because it's hilarious, and I know David Spade. It's like Hollywood's kind of boring. Yes, there are sex orgies. I'm not invited. I'm sure there's shit going on. Kids do get abused, women get abused.
I'll invite you if you want.
Please,
if you want.
We got the $75,000 dog, and then we'll get one. But me and David Spade, we go out to sushi restaurants, and you sit there and you listen to people complain. That's what a lot of Hollywood is deeply sad tragedy that people don't understand. And some of it is nefarious and dark, and there are problems, and there are real power brokers here. It's a dark town, 100%. But they do that everybody that lives here is in some wide-ranging, vast conspiracy isn't true. It ignores how humdrum, boring, deeply sad most people's lives are in Hollywood, and it ignores how sad fame is in general. Fame's a sad thing. Not always, but a lot of time it's a sad thing. It's fleeting, it's ephemeral, doesn't last, it separates you from other people, it's isolating, it can be traumatic depending on what's going on. Obviously, it's better than the alternative. If you're trying to be famous, it's better to be famous than not, right? I'll say that. But it's a mixed bag to a degree. There are things about it that aren't great. And Hollywood has a deep undercurrent of sadness of people that have not realized their dreams and people that have realized them. Both of those people.
Like the people that win Olympic gold medals tend to kind of suffer from depression.
Correct.
They've lost.
Well, somebody said, and I forget who said it, it's a great quote. It's not mine. I think it's from a book. Or it might be from a TV show. Sometimes they quote something and they're like, that's from Charlotte's Web. Two worst things. I think it's from the movie Limitless. I'm like an idiot. But anyway, thanks for having me on. Tomorrow
I will not publish this.
It's from the movie, and I think he says two worst things in the world are not. It's not from Limitless. I think it's from the movie where Nicolas Cage sold weapons. It's called Lord of War. It's a little better than Limitless. Anyway,
it's a good movie.
It's a great movie. Yeah. He said the two worst things in the world are not getting what you want and getting it. So the undercurrents of sadness that run through Hollywood there are two rivers that converge, and there are people that just never had it and people that have it and go, now what? And so it's a sad place. And there's a lot of, it's boring. That's what people don't realize. It's actually kind of boring.
Well, life
is kind of boring. But there's also so I think QAnon is this way to make a lot of it seem like it's super exciting. And listen, I don't want to diminish the experience of people who've abused it. There is a lot of horror here. But the whole QAnon thing was everybody in everything is doing, and that's not true.
But see, the ring on that a little bit is Bill Gates. The conspiracy theories around Bill Gates bother me because this is me, dumb, naive flex. Thinks that Bill Gates did a lot of good for this world.
Sure.
First, by creating a company that empowered personal computers, and second, by donating a ton of money for treating malaria in Africa and all those kinds of things. And there's these huge amounts of conspiracies, I think, based on just replies to whenever
Right.
Bill Gates does anything. Like, to me, the top replies should be about how inspiring that guy is to donate so much money.
Well, I think that.
So sorry to. And
Yeah,
the thing I'm struggling with is, if I'm Bill Gates, like, how do you behave differently? How do you show people that if you're not, I don't know, doing creepy stuff that they're saying he's doing?
Well, I think part of it is that he's done some really good stuff, right? He's an innovative guy. He's on the vanguard of a lot of things, but he's also the Antichrist. And I think that is, they're not mutually exclusive. He is the Prince of Darkness, as well as no. Here's my thing with Bill Gates. Yeah. He's a Batman villain billionaire, meaning that he's not a villain, but he's got all this money, right? Yeah. Here's the thing, and I love Musk and all these guys. I know you love these guys. Listen, when you have the kind of money that these guys have, and you have the vision that they have, and they want society to look a certain way, and a lot of them are doing great things, they need to get better at the pushback. They need to get a little better. When somebody says, hey man, what's going on over there? Bill Gates needs to be a little better at going, here's what.
Yeah.
Because, Bill Gates has the money. I think he once wanted to shoot a missile of dust at the atmosphere to help global warming. Yeah. And a lot of scientists were like, hey man, that might not be the way to do it. But no one in history, like so few people in history, have had the resources to even have that thought.
Yeah.
That if you have the resources to have that thought, and you have designs on the way you want society to look, whether it's public health policy or vaccinations, whatever, you have to get a little better at dealing with legitimate critiques. And obviously you're not defending yourself against people that say you're the Antichrist, but like, you need to get a little better. And I feel like Bill Gates and some of those people at that level are like, PR is kind of like,
they're terrible at it.
They're terrible at it. They're terrible at it.
Him and Zuckerberg are really bad at it.
Zuckerberg's horrible at it. He seems especially bad at public.
Yeah, and it makes me feel so bad because the problem with being a billionaire is you lose touch with reality if you're not careful. I think Elon is good at least so far, maintaining touch with reality.
No, but if you look at the name of his child, you can clearly see. Listen, I do like him, and I do think what he's done with Tesla, my producer has a Tesla, and he never shuts up about it. Most people that have Teslas never shut up about them, and they think they're part of the development team at SpaceX. And I like that he's created a world where people can get excited about a $37,000 car and never shut the fuck up about it to the point where I have to threaten people with physical violence to get them to stop telling me about that their car drives itself.
Oh, you should
maybe
get a Tesla.
Have a few less drinks and a few fewer Vicodin, and you can drive yourself.
Have you thought about getting a Tesla?
I've never thought about it. I don't like them. They're minimalist. I don't like I want more. I want more.
Get the Cybertruck.
I want to.
I'm just being trolling
my guy, my producer wants a Cybertruck. I want a stagecoach, old school stagecoach horse thief shit. Now, it's going back to that. I live in an area with a lot of horses. It's going back to like whipping a horse. I want an animal to shriek while I go by.
You want more suffering in the world, not less.
Oh, I think we need it.
Okay, but I just don't like that billionaire is a bad word. And it's not necessarily... Not every billionaire is a pedophile.
I know, but the problem is a lot of, like, it's just, Epstein was very smart at, like, just getting people at that house and taking photos of them. Nobody knew what they were doing, but it's like, it was one of those things where it's like, Epstein was the most social guy ever. Like, every photo, he's like, hey, and it's like, everyone that's ever done anything in the world has been at that fucking island. Every human being is, like, in a photo. It's just weird, like, it's funny, me and my friends get together, we don't ever take photos, right? Yeah. Like last night, a few people, it was my birthday yesterday, I'm 17, and my friends came over, and we're just eating dinner, right? And we had a fun night, just 4 people that are over, nobody, right? Nobody ever thought, like, let's hey, I want to remember it. Let's take photos, I'm 36, woo! Yeah. But everything Epstein did, there's just photos of everybody, it's interesting.
Do you think Jeffrey Epstein killed himself?
No, I think he was killed by that guy, that guy that they put in his cell, that lunatic, who's that big muscled guy. I think he did it for money, kept his mouth shut. That's
money from whom, do you think?
Mossad, MI6, CIA, all three.
So there's a lot of pressure from a lot of different powerful people.
Probably Mossad, CIA more. I mean, it seems very clear that he was working inside of a honeypot intelligence operation. Ghislaine Maxwell's father was an Israeli super spy. Ghislaine Maxwell is working for Israeli intelligence. It would be odd to think. And of course, the CIA knows about everything that Israeli intelligence is doing with Americans. So I would think that it's a very cozy relationship with those two intelligence agencies. And I think if you ran it by anyone, I think if you ran it by French intelligence, they'd go, yeah, no, get him. I don't think there's any intelligence service in the world whose job is to protect the powerful people that live in their countries that was against him getting whacked.
But do you think it's possible that he is just an evil person who is after manipulating people and also was a pedophile?
No.
So there's a bigger thing.
Absolutely. No, it's factual that there's a bigger thing. Evil people don't get handed...
Those are your facts, Tim Dillon.
No, there's the facts of the case. You don't get handed a 65... Show me another evil guy who was handed a $65 million place by Les Wexner. Show me another evil guy that got that type of handshake deal where he was basically... let off without anything after a judge had made a very sweetheart deal for him after he was accused of molesting a 14-year-old. Show me another evil guy that doesn't have that kind of backing, that has those type of friends, those connections, those type of properties. Show me multiple passports all over the world. So show me a guy without anyone backing him that's doing it. Why did they, so you think he's just an evil guy? So he's doing this for whom? It's his own just shits and giggles? He's just getting off on it?
Human nature, yeah.
Human nature, huh? It's human nature? $70 million limestone mansion.
Mocked.
Yeah. Is it human nature?
And it's like
I don't think
poetry.
it's human nature. I think they manipulated human nature. But I think they did it. I think Ghislaine. I think Epstein was really just a functionary, and I think Ghislaine was kind of a pimp, and Epstein was kind of a guy that made the money okay, and hid money and things like that, and worked for a lot of powerful people. I don't believe in lone pedophiles anymore. I don't even believe that. If you're a pedophile, you're like in a group. You know what I mean?
Well, I'm not even going there, but staying on Ghislaine. So you believe there's some power in her. What do you think happens to her now? Like, what are the different...
Great question. I mean, I don't know what'll happen to her, but I imagine she'll get some type of deal, closed door thing years from now when people don't really care about the case, and she'll serve some time in a very lax thing, or she'll be killed. I mean, again, it's like, if she was doing what she was doing, which is, I believe, a fact, that she was compromising powerful people so that they could be blackmailed by, the intelligence services of the U.S. and Israel, probably. I don't see how she wasn't doing that. Someone's using the photos and the tapes, right? Someone's using that against these people. Someone wants to control these people. Well, who and why? That's the real question. And I think the real question is, you want to exert control over congressmen and senators and presidents because they have the power to make decisions to affect the law. The CIA just works for a lot of very wealthy people. That's what the CIA was. That's how the CIA started, right? With lawyers, bankers. They're protecting financial interests of multinational corporations all over the world, overthrowing democratically elected governments, going into subterfuge campaigns, encouraging terror. They're doing all kinds of crazy stuff. I don't see why that would change. I think that's who they still represent, and I think those people want certain policies and certain people pushed forward, and I think those people are controlled, and I think one of the ways to control people is their sexual problems, and that's the way they do it.
I wish there was a way to, because everything you just said now
makes a lot of sense, doesn't it?
I'm being indoctrinated on air. No,
I think Chris was just a fun random guy who just wanted to make home movies. The president.
Well, you think I'm just some random guy? I'm just trying to sell myself as somebody who's friendly with the American audience.
I believe you are backed by people that want people to be more comfortable with robot dogs. I believe that. I believe you're pushed to be the happy face of AI.
Which is why I would edit this part out.
No editing. Joe Rogan's rule, no editing.
This is live. No, I mean, I wish there was a way for some of the conspiracy theories to prove that that's not the case. Like what the CIA is, there is some possibility in my mind that institutions like the CIA, a different kind of organization, are driven less by organized malevolence and more by just incompetence, just bureaucracy. he being incompetent.
I think that argument gets less and less persuasive when you look at all the things they've been able to do.
Right. It's very certain.
Yeah.
You said that there's a bunch of them that have done. There's some conspiracy theories that are dramatically true. The question is, I wish there was a way to prove that some of them are not, and it's very difficult because so much is shrouded in mystery. Like one of the things I'm bothered by is when people accuse others, like athletes, of using steroids, for example. And it's just, yes, a lot of people use steroids, but it sucks that people just don't believe you. Like there's some incredible athletes that look shredded, that look just incredible performers, and everybody just says that they're on steroids. They kind of assume.
Yeah, and people accuse me all the time of being on performance-enhancing drugs and steroids, and it is hard. But what I remind them is what my appearance is a result of dedication. But no, hard work, diet, exercise, dedication.
Are you on keto?
I'm on keto. I'm doing a version of you're keto, right? So I'm doing a version of keto right now with bread. You see what I mean?
You carb up in order to be able.
Keto with sugar. It's called keto plus sugar, and it's a good diet for. I grew up in the '90s when nobody ever lost weight, sadly, because every diet was like, you can eat what you want, just be accountable. No one even knew what that meant. So it would be like my mother being like, if you have chocolate chip pancakes, have a glass of water.
Yeah.
Just take a walk around the block.
Yeah.
You can go to McDonald's 3 times a day. Just walk around the block. It's my parents used to say, my mother would be like, just walk around the block. You're fine. Gonna have a cigarette? Walk 20 steps. Walk 20 steps back. It's exercise. So, there's too many conspiracies out there. A lot of them aren't true. A lot of them are bitter, angry people trying to justify their own impotence, not being able to do anything in life. And they're like, the people that have done something in life, they're all nefarious. It's all the card just stacked against them. That's 100%. 100%. It attracts usually people that have not figured out a way to succeed or haven't succeeded on the level that they want to. But that also being true, there is a fair amount of fuckery going on and provable. And, we just have to, I think, separate, know that these things are often inflated or not true, but know that sometimes they are true. Otherwise, it wouldn't exist. If there was nothing to JFK, if there was nothing to 9/11, if people felt like they were being dealt with honestly, this wouldn't exist. I mean, this exists because there are real questions that people have that don't get answered for whatever reason, and then the vacuum of the refusal to answer those questions, that information vacuum, is filled with people like Alex Jones who are curious, and sometimes they're right, sometimes they're horribly wrong, and sometimes they're all over the place.
They're good storytellers, and people love stories. And when there's an absence of actual.
Alex is a uniquely American person, like a very interesting. I don't know how many countries, like how many people make a living as a conspiracy theorist, a good living in other regions, right? It's very rare, right? I mean, it's very interesting. He became like, I know people that went to kids and go to Austin and perform a lot. And he was a guy that would take a bullhorn and yell at cops because DV checkpoints were unconstitutional. That's what he was doing in college. And he just went through, he was hated by the right. He was hated by the Bush people. He was hated by the, and he went from being this guy that was considered like a leftist even. Like, even though he was never a leftist, he was considered this like enemy of mainstream conservatism. Like, he was not, and they considered a guy that was a patriot, was this and that. And he just, like he whines and ends up just being this confidant of a Republican president, very divisive Republican president, and he becomes this populist and everything like that. It's really wild to watch that. But I do think he should retire eventually, just so he could get some, I don't know, it seems like a lot to keep doing.
Well, I hope this world allows Alex Jones to continue having a voice, because just like you said, he's you use the word fun, but really he shakes up the norms of our discourse.
I do too. I do think we need to put more value. I think entertainment, we do need to say that, like, there are people that should be allowed to have a voice for entertainment purposes.
Right.
And that's part of what Donald Trump, now that he's not the president, come on, let him talk.
Who do you think is the best comedian of all time?
Oh, that's a great question. Greatest of all time.
You mentioned Carlin. Your uncle's liking Carlin.
Well, Carlin is great. Carlin is really hard to argue with, but Chappelle is also really great. Louis C.K. is really great. I don't know that there's Joan Rivers is great. I don't know, you smile at that.
Well,
she's a beast of a comic.
I'm not aware of her stand-up actually.
Ask Rogan, ask anyone. It's great.
So what makes a great comic in the history of comedy? Just like
said something at the moment in a way. You found a way to communicate with people in the funniest possible way at that moment, and illustrated larger truths about life in what they did. And I think that guys like Louis and Chappelle and Pryor, Kinnison, Hicks, people like Joan Rivers have done that. And even, modern people like Maria Bamford's an amazing comedian. Different style of comedy per se, but she's an amazing comedian. Cat Williams is an amazing comedian. He really is.
Does he have any... Well, see, one of the things you kind of mentioned, the comedians you mentioned, they were kind of fearless in saying the different things that need to be said. Cat Williams is more, I don't remember his comedy, but I think it's just more wild out there.
Well, to an extent, but you can watch it. He's got stuff. He talks about stuff. He talks about race brilliantly. He talks about America brilliantly. No, I think there's a lot of stuff there.
Of course, Chris Rock.
Chris Rock, of course. It's so hard. You can't really click on it. You just gotta... There's a class of people that throughout the history of this business, which is not that long of a history, it's pretty much within the last century, that have been really influential. Sometimes it's style, the way they deliver things. Sometimes it's substance, like how they, what they're saying, or sometimes it's just the style of what they're saying. I mean, and we're only talking about stand-up comedians, right? So there's a million great comedians. We're going to talk about Jim Carrey, Adam Sandler, Chris Farley. These are brilliant. And those guys are bigger influences in comedy, I think, than stand-up, really, truly. So there's so many brilliant people in the business.
Who was for you influential? Early on,
Hicks was influential because I'd watch Bill Hicks and I'd be like, this guy's saying crazy shit on stage, and this is the only way he can get away with it is because it's so funny. And he was calling out the military-industrial complex, and he was talking about the first Gulf War. I remember he said a joke that I heard, it made me sit up straight. He goes, he was in Canada and he said, we had a war in the States. He was talking about the first Gulf War. And he said, I was in the unenviable position of being for the war, but against the troops. And to me, I love that joke. It was so funny to me. And I was like, oh, you can't get away with that anywhere other than standing on a stage. You could never say that in an office, really. And this was before, it was like PC and this and the other thing. I always knew that comedians had to say shit and have it be funny enough that you couldn't get away with it in polite society. That was the whole point. That was